start.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome everyone to another edition of the Morning Brief, but this is a special edition. It comes on the 9th birthday of our favorite cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. So happy birthday, Bitcoin. My name is Valentin Schmidt. I'll be the host. We have a couple of exciting stories for our birthday child, including some people talking about central banks investing in reserves, and this comes up periodically. The IMF talks about it, the Chinese central bank talks about it, the Russian central bank talks about it. Now we have someone, a private equity family office in Ghana, where the vice president of Group Pendulum, his name is Papa Wassa, he said that the Ghana central bank should invest in Bitcoin. And he makes some very good reasons. He says the dollar is falling, so why not invest in Bitcoin? And he says, well, yeah, it's risky, but getting out of bed in the morning is risky. So, Tone, you had some comments on that.
Yeah, so like when the story first broke last night, it came around the same time as the price of Bitcoin was breaking out. And it really sounded like, the Ghana Central Bank was actually going to do this. But then as you read the story, it's just some advisor trying to advise the bank to do this. And the fact that this news is public probably isn't very good. I mean, this is not how banks and especially central banks operate, right? Like they get advice from like private financial institutions, even like hedge funds. I mean, they have good input. But this stuff is supposed to be private. It's not supposed to be out there in the public domain. Now, on the flip side, when a central bank releases like its advisory or its anticipated moves publicly, they're doing it specifically to gauge public opinion. Like when Janet Yellen comes out and says, yeah, well, we're thinking about raising rates next month. And then you gauge the public reaction. And if the stock market just dumps, you're like, oh, no, they're just an idea. We're not actually going to do it. Let's come down, people. And then if the stock market reacts, it's just a little raise of the interest rate, not a big deal. They probably should have done it already. And the market reaction is smooth. They'll be, oh, okay, so we can do it. Okay, so you always have to understand the motivation behind news like this going public. And in this case, I wouldn't think much of it. Now, if a central bank was to actually do this, that would be significant news. Also, look back about a year or two ago when the Bank of Barbados was advised to do the same. It's the same story as it was a year or two ago with Barbados. Let's see what happens. I mean, I personally would also recommend central banks to put 1 to 3% of their assets into Bitcoin. I would recommend that as well. But you know what's going to happen, right? Like all of these shitcoiners are going to jump all over this. Next thing you know, someone from Ripple Labs is going to be flying into Ghana trying to convince the central bank to put the money into Ripple, right? And this is how things get really, really bad when the nonsense of scam coins goes to those levels. So they have to be really careful. Bitcoin is very different than the other children in the space. Just keep that in mind.
So, and just to be clear, that guy isn't even an official advisor to the central bank. He's surely an influential person in Ghana and an investor and has financial knowledge, but he's basically just telling his opinion.
Yeah, like I'm happy that this is potentially going to break us out of that triangle and then send the price of Bitcoin up. but in reality, this is more of a non-news than actual news. In reality, this is closer to fake news than real news.
Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't know how real this is, but I don't know if central banks are really the people that are going to put money in with stuff like that. They tend to be very conservative, and then they act all quickly and do all sorts of rash and crazy things in a crisis. So I do think sovereign wealth funds are much more likely to invest in Bitcoin. Probably some of them already have. We just don't know about it. And they're the ones that really have a lot of the country's money. So who knows? We'll be watching this sort of story. I do think it's interesting that it's a tiny country like Ghana and not, you know, somebody in Europe or something like that, because that would make obviously much bigger news. But great for Ghana if they do. Whoever gets in first is going to win huge in this thing, and we'll have a lot more wealth.
If someone like is familiar with what happened with Bermuda, not Bermuda, sorry, yeah, I think it was Barbados, sorry. If someone's familiar how the Barbados, the same exact story out of Barbados from over a year ago, how that turned out, please comment or, you know, let us know. I'm really curious.
Please let us know. Talking about winning huge, there is one bigger investor. He's not a central bank, but he has a venture capital fund, Peter Thiel, who founded the Founders Fund, which is a venture capital fund, invested 15 to 20 million in Bitcoin, probably early 2017, late 2016, and made 10x on it. So they are winning big, and they are not the first institutions. They are among the first institutions, but certainly not the last to move into the space. Tony.
Yeah, I mean, the hedge funds, the smart hedge funds have been already on top of this, right? Like nothing is stopping them. This is why you run a hedge fund, so that you can invest in any asset you want. You can invest in, you know, patents, or you can do whatever you like, right? You can. Like I remember like 4 or 5 years ago, everyone had their panties in a bunch because hedge funds were starting to invest in clean water, that the world was going to run out of water, and the hedge funds were going to own all of the fresh water like the world has. Like, again, people just, you know, things get out of hand. So everyone's going to be worried that all the hedge funds are going to buy up all the Bitcoin, right? It's, yeah, I mean, they can if they're smart. Like, check out that video I did on crypto scam hedge funds, where I make fun of hedge funds that are only doing crypto stuff. I mean, you're a hedge fund. You can do whatever you like. Hire a couple of guys that understand Bitcoin and buy Bitcoin. There's a good Whale Panda tweet, I think yesterday or today, saying, hey, Bitcoin was up 13x from like January 1st to January 1st over the last year. So if your trading did not return you 13x in fiat, you probably shouldn't be trading, and you should just be holding Bitcoin.
Talking about the institutions, I myself had 2 interesting chats with some very prominent people in the space. One is, you can find them on my website. One is Paul Brodsky of Pantera Capital, and he's used to be a macro investor and then went into crypto. And he basically said that family offices especially, so the bigger private investors where you cannot put money in unless you're part of the closest circle, they are finishing their due diligence now. They spent the whole of last year watching this and doing research, and they're going to invest probably next year. And then another guy who runs a network of family offices, David Drake, he basically said the same thing. And he said for the bigger institutions like pension funds, and insurance company, like the real big guys, for them, custody and insurance were a big problem. And he thinks that now hedge funds are ready, they have solved this, and so these big institutions can invest through the hedge funds, so they don't get into trouble with their own internal regulations. So if all of this is true, then we're gonna see a lot more institutional money flowing into Bitcoin. And as Paul Brodsky said, okay, market cap is what, 280 billion compared to gold, compared to bank money, compared to stocks. It's nothing. If they just buy 1%, price is going to go up 10x. Jimmy,
right. And one more thing on definitions, right? So, because you throw out the words hedge funds and the word family office, I mean, these are there are definitions to this, but like to provide just a simple layman's difference. A family office is more private, and it doesn't really trade outside money like pension money, right? Like, for example, like a teacher's pension fund can technically put that money with a hedge fund. They cannot put that money with a family office.
So yeah, that's right, exactly.
Right. So if you're a family office, you're basically trading your own money, your family's money, your friends' money, Like, and the line gets kind of murky. It's like, oh, this guy is, all-time friend that we know we met like a year ago, and he wants to give me money to invest. But that's still different than institutional money, right? So meanwhile, like pension funds could, put their money with hedge funds. Then there's also fund of funds that are like funds that invest in multiple hedge funds. But anyway, the definitions start to get a little bit murky. So that's what I kind of wanted to add. And
I mean,
so they could be getting in.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I've been hearing about this all year last year. Just like family offices, hedge funds, even venture capital firms and institutional investors all trying to get into Bitcoin. And the biggest issue that they all had was the fact that, custody was very difficult because they're not used to bearer assets. With almost every other asset, you have some centralized party that you can give the asset to and then just trade back and forth very quickly. With Bitcoin, it's a bearer asset. You actually have to control your own keys. But that's also why there's so much opportunity in this space as a retail investor, is that the institutions and hedge funds, they're having trouble getting in. So that means you can front run them, which is an extraordinary sort of opportunity that doesn't come around very often. It's almost always hedge funds, venture capital firms, institutions that get in ahead of you. But with Bitcoin, you get to get in ahead of them. So that's an important part of why it continues to go up, despite the huge retail appeal that Bitcoin has clearly had.
Right. And one final note on this, you really gotta, who exactly is doing this due diligence within those institutions, right? Who's doing it? And is it an altcoiner or is it a Bitcoiner, right? Is it whose research are they reading? Are they watching our show with me and Jimmy, or are they watching, people like, God forbid, like they're reading Ronnie Moses' report, the guy from CNBC that thinks, that you should buy like the top 100 cryptos and hold them all, right? So same thing. This was my question for when the news broke that Goldman Sachs has a cryptocurrency desk. I mean, what does that mean? Are they trading, BitConnect, or are they only focusing on Bitcoin? Right? Like, there's a big difference there, right? Like, are they actually going to go into Ponzi schemes? Are they actually going to go into some of these, very speculative shitcoins out of China? Like, what does that mean? So what does it mean for a family office or a hedge fund to go into crypto? Is it going to be just holding Bitcoin in its private keys, or are they going to be trading on Poloniex, right? Like there's a big difference there.
Absolutely. So from what I gathered from Brodsky and Drake, and I think they are representative of the community. So first of all, yes, they are definitely going to diversify because they're just at the beginning of the learning curves. They don't really understand all the downfalls of the altcoins. But on the other hand, they will put most money in the biggest, most established thing, and that is Bitcoin. It's like with stocks, the biggest weight in the index.
Well, I don't know, man. It's slowly becoming Ripple, right? I mean, this is the thing. People also have to realize that these hedge funds, they're not always geniuses either. Like lots of hedge funds went down in 2008. The movie The Big Short is profiling, 4 hedge funds that killed it during that time with amazing returns. But the business that I worked for, we did risk analysis for hedge funds as a middleman. And 2008 was an amazing year when shit was hitting the fan. Everybody needed our business. But then by the end of 2009, our business lost 50% of its clients because our job was to get hedge fund positions and analyze them for risk. It's all fun and games when hedge funds are in trouble, but when half of the hedge funds that we were analyzing were no longer in business, all of a sudden the demand for our services aren't as necessary because the number of hedge funds we're doing risk analysis on is shrunk by 40 to 50%.
Well, yes, that goes back to they're doing their research and they're probably taking all sorts of stuff. They probably won't come to what we think is the right conclusion straight away. And hedge funds blow up. And if the crypto or the altcoin bubble bursts, then some of them will lose and blow up too. That's
and I guarantee you, when this is all said and done, when the crypto bubble pops, there will be some famous hedge funds that have put their bets on the wrong crypto, And when that crypto technologically like gets exposed, the value of that token goes immediately to zero. And if that hedge fund doesn't have proper risk management, some hedge fund that's been around for 15 years can completely just blow itself up by buying into the wrong shitcoin.
Jimmy, do you have any final thoughts about where their money will go?
I don't. The thing I'm hearing from a lot of them is that they do have a diverse portfolio of crypto. So I haven't heard of too many that are concentrated mostly on Bitcoin.
Okay, well, we see how it goes. I mean, even if Bitcoin gets the largest inflow, though, if they just put a tiny bit into a less liquid altcoin, price-wise, it will squeeze the price up more. So there's a difference between allocation and price effect also. But we will see as it plays out. The North Koreans, they're also investing in Bitcoin. That's the next story, but they're doing it in a slightly different way by hijacking computers and doing mining operations. Jimmy, this is a story for you.
Yeah, North Korean hackers are hijacking computers and mining crypto with it. Apparently, there was a server in a South Korean company that was seized by North Korean operatives, and they mined 70 Monero, which is worth about 25,000 as of December 29th. And that's just one that they know about. Who knows how many other ones that the North Koreans have successfully infiltrated and utilized for gathering some cryptocurrency. It's rather difficult to use like normal computers to mine Bitcoin, for example. So I imagine they mostly do it with something like Monero, which is sort of CPU mineable. But what are they doing with it? I don't know. Maybe they're converting it to Bitcoin and keeping some reserve. Maybe they are the first country to have some reserves in Bitcoin. I don't know. It's definitely possible.
Tony.
No, I mean, I've been saying it on this show for probably years now. Well, not this show, but other shows. Like, I can see the pendulum like swinging the other way. I'm here in Colombia, and like I'm learning a lot about the culture here, like between Colombia and Venezuela over the last 30 years, where Colombia was going through a rough patch like 20 years ago, and a lot of people like were leaving Colombia to just go to Venezuela to live because it was just so much better. And now the situation is completely reversed. And Colombia, like Venezuelans, it's fairly easy for Venezuelans to come here to Colombia and get like a work permit and all this stuff, because it's kind of like, again, pendulum is swinging. Colombia is pretty nice here, like fairly safe, at least in Medellin that I've been walking around at night all the time. So it's the same thing. I mean, eventually the pendulum's going to swing again. Venezuela will, hopefully get out of its dumpster and, once again become, a good place to live, and maybe North Korea will do the same, right? So if North Korea has a bunch of Bitcoin, its people have a bunch of Bitcoin, its government has like a bunch of Bitcoin reserve, as that government swings from ultra communism to potentially capitalism one day, that pendulum can swing fairly quickly. So we'll see what happens.
As Saifuddin always says, Bitcoin is cleansing the world of socialism.
That's awesome.
Okay, so let's hope the quantum computers won't cleanse the world from Bitcoin. And this is a topic that you always hear. It's like one of the standard arguments against Bitcoin. So we decided to bring it up. So quantum computers, they're supposed to be so fast. So either they can crack the math problem or they can crack the encryption. Jimmy, what is the real threat here?
The real threat is Vitalik Buterin. No, he's kind of known as like sort of saying stuff about quantum computing that doesn't really make any sense. Like we've been hearing this for years now, but people don't realize like if you have real quantum computing with enough qubits, then what you're going to have is like a lot of other stuff break down too. It's not like they tend to think, okay, well, like Bitcoin's the thing that's in trouble. Well, there's like 100 other things that are in trouble if you do it. Everything's built on the same cryptography. RSA, ECDSA, they're all not quantum safe. There are quantum safe algorithms, and I imagine if there were some sort of attack around this, that those quantum safe algorithms would be almost immediately implemented in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's probably going to be the most nimble in that regard, as opposed to like almost everything else, which is going to suffer from quantum computers breaking it. But that's it. Like, this is many, many years away. I can't imagine quantum computing coming that quickly. You know, and there's the amount of money that you need to invest in order to get like a real quantum computer up and running is just so insane that I really doubt that, you know, it would be some like hacker in a basement that's able to like go and get Bitcoin. It's gonna be some large research institution or some company with lots and lots of money that can back something like this, like Google or something like that, and they're gonna have responsible disclosure. It's not gonna be like, oh, okay, we're gonna go and end Bitcoin right now. They'll tell the right people, and they'll change to some sort of different quantum safe algorithm or whatever.
So two important elements to sum up is it's one of those arguments that's like, what if there's no electricity? Well, okay, you know, try to buy something with your gold if there's no electricity. Gold is only useful if there's production. No electricity, no production. And this quantum computing thing goes into the same vein. You can hack Bitcoin. Okay, so you can hack your bank, your credit card, your the real estate records. Everything can be hacked. And as Jimmy said, I think you confirmed this, it would be possible to change the proof of work to a quantum self algorithm, right?
Yes. And you know, this is something that I'm sure people will. I mean, like, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a core developer that already has something out, like, ready to go.
Luke Jr. has been wanting to change the mining algorithm for years, right? So yeah. I'm sure he'll be the first to put something out that's quantum safe.
Yeah, and he's typically really, really fast when it comes to coding something. So. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about this. This is the sort of like FUD story that the mainstream media likes to put out.
Yeah, and I agree. And speaking of Vitalik, I mean, that was his first project for Ethereum. He was raising money for to build a quantum computer, right? Like, it's but yeah, and again, like, if someone was to create a quantum computer, wouldn't the first thing they'd want to do is actually mine Bitcoin and like outcompete like other miners? Like, it's only supporting the Bitcoin environment.
I'm not sure if quantum computers can be used for SHA-256 pre-images. I think it's mostly to break ECDSA or RSA. But I mean, regardless, I don't think it would be. Because you affect the economy, the Bitcoin economy, in too many ways that it wouldn't really make sense. Like, you could, for example, take Satoshi's coins with some sort of quantum algorithm potentially, but then like everyone's gonna freak out the minute like Satoshi's coins move. So like, what are you gonna do, right? Like,
right, you're not gonna be able to sell them.
And really, is Google interested in moving Satoshi's coins? Like you need so much money in order to make this happen. It doesn't really make sense.
So just to be clear, you were talking about cracking the private key encryption. You just said that quantum computers do not provide an advantage to solve the math problem for the mining.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'd have to go and read some research papers on that, but mostly it's ECDSA and RSA, not hash pre-images that I don't think is breakable by quantum computing as far as
Any final thoughts on this, Tone?
Yeah, no, just one last thing, because you guys already said it. It's people always like to make fun. Well, what good is Bitcoin if there's no internet? And the answer is, well, what good is your bank if there's no internet? And the logical conclusion that the person would make is, well, what happens if there's no electricity? And my answer is, well, then we all die. Then it doesn't really matter, right? But like how good is your nuclear power plant if there's no electricity? Most of them have about a 2 week backup. So the electricity grid better be back up and quickly. So it's again like these. catastrophic examples are not very good. Like, yeah, you better have some bullets and you better have some guns because because your gold isn't going to be worth all that much either.
Yeah, that's very important for people to understand that money is only useful if there's commerce and production. But if electricity breaks down, if just-in-time breaks down, there is no production, so there's nothing you can buy. So then you need your guns, your bullets, your farm, so you can produce yourself. But we in general don't like to think about it.
Yeah, you got to hand it to like the producer of The Walking Dead, right? If anyone watches that show, clearly that the producer is not a gold bug, right? I mean, gold hasn't been. I don't think gold's ever been mentioned once. The show is like 7 years in, right? I mean, that's what happens when there's no electricity. I mean, the zombies set aside, but that's basically the idea.
So we try to stay more positive. Do we have positive news from the Medpool, Jimmy?
Not really. We have a lot. So when we looked yesterday, it was around here. I thought that it would clear some, but it turns out that there's been a lot more demand for blockchain space. We're looking at fees in the 300 plus Satoshi per byte range, and those are getting cleared. You can sort of see the spiking here. And each of the down spikes are almost always, blocks being found. Far as the mempool goes, like there's actually not that many transactions in that range. It's just that relatively speaking, they're such high fees that it's so much more profitable for miners. If you want to get something in today, you're probably going to have to pay 300 Satoshi per byte or more. You may be able to get away with 200, something like that, depending on how things sort of shake out in the next few hours. But, all businesses are back online. A lot of people are sort of doing maybe a lot more transactions with the new year, maybe investing or bringing it into their private keys, and maybe part of their New Year's resolution is I will get my Bitcoin off of exchanges. I don't know, but certainly this looks like the thing going forward is that 300 Satoshi per byte is more or less what you're going to need to pay today.
I mean, their New Year's resolution should be I should start using SegWit and implement it with my company. But hey, you know what, Jimmy? We should pull up that graph, like add it to this section. Pull up the graph of SegWit adoption and see how many transactions. I don't know if you know the URL off the top of your head.
I don't, but we can Google for it. SegWit party, is this it? Transaction percentage,
I think so, yeah. But they had a graph. Yeah, is that it?
It is. It's not loading though. Okay, there it is. Yeah, so we're looking at around 10%, 144 block moving average, and
yeah, that's unfortunate. That's really bad.
Well, I mean, it's mostly businesses that fill up these blocks. So 10% is probably like the users actually, and the other 90% are these businesses. So I don't know. Maybe local Bitcoins accepting them doesn't seem to have. Bumped it too much in the past 144 blocks, which is 24 hours.
I go back to the three biggest offenders, right? Blockchain.info, Coinbase, and BitPay.
And they have certainly a large percentage of the block transactions, and I mean, it's unfortunate. Hopefully, there are competitors that come in and kind of destroy them. I don't know. They're ready to be disrupted. That's all I know.
Yeah.
All right.
What about the price? Is the price being disrupted, Tone?
No, the price is actually doing pretty well. Let's go and take a look. All right, I'm on my website. Again, my usual disclaimer, my Learn Trading section. So please, if you're looking to be a trader, you really want to be an expert at this section. Plenty of information here, plenty of links for you to learn more materials. The indicators that I like using are advanced, and they're part of section 6. If you need help learning this material, this is the trading seminars that I'm putting together. And the one in Singapore in 2 weeks is now down to 7 seats remaining. And as of today, I decided to add one in LA on February 10th. So please, there's contact information down below on this page. So if you would like to attend, no one has yet signed up because I'm talking about it for the first time, please reach out. All right, here's the price. Again, the weekly is back. Yesterday when we did this, this was hovering around -1 on our price flip. Today we're doing okay, but next week is going to be the challenge. Like this week may or may not end on a green 5 or a red 1, but the real challenge comes next week, because in order to keep the weekly bullish momentum, we would need a new all-time weekly close. Which would mean that we would need to bust all the way out and get above 19,000 to close the week. That's going to be very, very difficult, I believe. So the weekly chart is barely positive, but it's pretty much neutral. The daily chart is where all the interesting stuff is happening. We were getting a little bit of a scare going to the bottom of this triangle, and then we just busted out to the top of the triangle, and I tweeted out last night saying, hey, we're right at the top of the triangle. We're not yet, the chart is not yet screaming to buy Bitcoin. You need to make sure you break out. So let's wait another day. We're not breaking out yet. You can clearly see, I know every exchange is different, but you can clearly see that we have not yet broken above yesterday's highs. And that is what I would need to see in order to tweet out the fact that Bitcoin daily is on a bullish trade. I would really need to see a new high. Ideally, I would love to get above this Fibonacci line at 1650. The moment we go above this other high, it will be very clear that the triangle is breaking to the upside. We now get very, very close to a double top, even though some people are seeing head and shoulders here. I'm not sure where they're looking to see this. I don't. To me, this is not exactly a clean head and shoulders, maybe on other time frames. But I'm not a huge fan of that pattern to begin with. But to me, once we break out above 1650, that's it. I mean, I'm looking for new all-time highs at that point. I think above 1650, we're no longer in that bubble curve where it's like return to range. I mean, this was it. Once we get back to this high, we're probably going to break it. Once we get back to this high, we're probably going to break it. This is my no double tops view on things. So I'm watching this carefully. I'll try and, tweet out some alerts. But it's getting ready. I mean, like, keep an eye on head fakes. We can definitely go up to just under 16,000 and then reverse and then go all the way down. Very possible. You got to keep that head fake in mind. But right now, things are looking up. There's a much higher probability of a breakout to new all-time highs from this triangle than the other way around. Here's the 4-hour chart. 4-hour chart did give you a 9 buy indication here. All the closing numbers stayed above our support levels. Look, now we broke above the resistance level. This is the setup trend line that was created off of the creation of this 9. This line is basically coming from the top of this candle. If I put the back test on, you will see this candle has a 1 on it. Exactly. And that's what draws on this line. Maybe I can make it a dotted line to help you guys out. You take the very top of this candle and then you extend it, and that's how you get that dotted line, right? So I just merged right into that line, all right? And we're now above that line as we got a 9. So what does this mean? This is actually really good. Again, people that are trading this indicator, got a nice heads up about 8 hours ago that, hey, maybe I should take my profit. This was a pretty good run from the bottom here. This is the 4-hour chart. So what does it mean? Because we got this 9 by breaking the dotted line, unlike this 9 here that couldn't break the dotted line when it formed. Because this 9 broke the dotted line, this 9 is more likely to lead to just a 1 to 4 candle reversal and then a countdown to the upside of 13. So this is a good bullish 9 as opposed to this 9, which is not a very bearish 9, and it was also not perfected. I can tell by the color of the arrows. Again, these are the advanced things of this indicator that you need to read my website and perhaps become a consulting client. But hopefully you can learn it all on your own and you won't need to be. The hourly chart isn't very helpful right now. It did give you a 9 here, which led to a very slight 1 candle correction, and then we're off to the races. So now we're on a 7, looking for a 13. Oh, an 8 just disappeared. Looking for a 13 for a potential take profit zone. Yeah, so things are starting to look bullish. I would wait for a daily to give you a new daily high, and then you can, as a trader, double down on your bullish position above 1650, and you can double down again on your position at the breakout of the vicinity of all-time highs, because it means we're probably breaking. That's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else to add. Here is my look at the mempool. So if I was to send a Bitcoin transaction, I would try to keep it, in the 125 Satoshi per byte range to get it confirmed in the next, 6 to 12 blocks or something.
Okay, so some positive news from Tone Base on the price. Happy birthday, Bitcoin. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Jimmy.
This song is done.